I'd like to introduce Gary Lee Moore, who's the city engineer at the City of Los Angeles and is the general manager of the Bureau of Engineering. And as such, he's responsible for the city's vast network of public infrastructure, which includes planning, design, and construction of public facilities. And Gary Lee Moore oversaw the construction of the protective shelter, the viewing platform, the interpretive centre of América Tropical, which was not without its challenges of working within this historic context. And Gary is going to discuss those now. Welcome, Gary.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's a real honor to be here, and I want to thank you for this opportunity. As city engineer, I currently oversee over 400 projects totaling $2.5 billion. But there's always one or two projects that I get personally involved in, and this was one of them. And it was a real pleasure to be part of this. As you heard this morning, you heard Jesus with the vision for this. You heard Chris working with the Getty Institute to find the money. You heard Mark tell you about his vision. And then everybody said, okay, good luck, build this. So that's what I'm going to tell you a little bit about. Go get 'em, Tiger. El Pueblo, as you've seen, is very close to City Hall. That's where my boss sits, Mayor Villaraigosa right there. And so it's a great location right next to downtown if you haven't had the opportunity. We've seen from the previous speakers where this is bounded. It's unique in that you're dealing with multiple buildings over almost 200 feet. Most projects are a little more concentrated, but this definitely working through 4 different buildings. You know, we talked about the age of the buildings, and I don't know if any of you have ever done a home remodeling project. Well, you always find something. Well, we found a few things also. And when you build in buildings that were built in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, you're going to find a few changes. And you know, people didn't have the respect always about these buildings that we have now. And so there was a lot of undocumented utilities, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Project details, we started construction 2 years ago in August of 2010, and we completed it, at least 10 days early. I joke because we were supposed to finish this months early, but we finished it just days in advance of the grand opening. And we had great partnerships with everybody to make this happen. And it was quite a challenge, and it took a lot of effort of everybody. And definitely 3 members of the team are here today, Pradeep and Robert and Javier. They're here, and raise your hand. There they are right there. So thank you, gentlemen. So grand openings are great. The enthusiasm is through the roof, and there's going to be no unforeseen conditions. That's what everybody said on the groundbreaking ceremony. And of course, we found a few. You know, El Pueblo, as you've heard also, 2 million visitors. That's a lot of people, 365 days a year. And it's, these are businesses. This is how people make their living. It's not just an antique, but it's people are dependent on this. We had to relocate city staff. In an historic site, where do you find a spot to store all the materials? A lot of the work had to be done also at night because of the drilling and the excavation work that had to be done. Street closures. Once again, you saw the proximity to City Hall, very close to City Hall, and it required some special street closures. We have, El Pueblo also has in September a large, for Mexican Independence Day, a large gathering, which hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people come to. So you got to work through all these items. I'm going to show you some slides. We've heard about the Zanja Madre and this beast called the transfer beam, this little, that would transfer all the load of the column and so that the Zanja Madre would not be damaged. Historic buildings that are existing have very low ceiling heights. And we were working inside of these buildings to drill 45 feet down into the ground. Guess what? They're historic. So you've got, every time you removed everything, you had to catalog it, set it aside, and not everything was in a great condition. We needed to replace a few things. But we had archaeologists on site and preservationists working with us throughout this period. And the last one is, you heard Mr. Churro. For those of us who are here, a long fried donut. Mr. Churro had a business right there that we had to relocate. So those are, once again, challenges, but I'm glad to say Mr. Churro still survived and is thriving in a different area there. You know, in this slide here, what I want to do is really talk about, when we get into the slides, is drilling these 45 feet down into the ground, and then pouring. These are 18 inches in diameter, and there was about 46 of these in the HAMMEL building. Then you pour a 5-foot thick concrete mat, and then you've got to erect a steel column. All this in a historic facility. If that's not enough, well, we want to also have the viewing platform over here. So we're going to drill through the roof again, and we're going to have these piles down here that also went 45 feet down. This, once again, is just showing the layout of the roof plan on the second floor of the Sepulveda house. And once again is the American Disabilities Act in 1905 was not in place, and thus we didn't have the right accommodations in all the restrooms, and had to bring everything up to code there. Zanja Madre, you keep hearing about that. And there it was, right there. And one of the fun things that we did, and one of the change orders we did issue during this project is, when we go back into the HAMMEL building, we actually have put, so you can see it now, we put in lighting, we didn't put the floor back all the way, so we've put railing in there so you can actually see the Zanja Madre that was built in 1850 by the settlers. So that was something good about this whole process of finding these things down there. So here we are in the HAMMEL building, which is the building that the canopy sits over that. As I said, all the flooring and supports were all removed, cataloged, and stored for reinstallation. There was actually a stairwell down into this, well, I'll call it a California basement. It was about 5 to 8 feet tall down there. And that stairwell, there was a stairwell that was not replaced, and we have kept that and stored that away. One of the other things that we had to do was the basement wall had to be demolished in this area. The HAMMEL building exterior, this entire storefront had to be removed. And once again, you can see the work going on there to catalog everything because we had to put it back. The Zanja Madre, as I've mentioned, was built in 1850, and it was by the laborers who brought the water from the Los Angeles River to the pueblo here. This is the Zanja Madre. It doesn't, this is it. This is why we had to do all of this. And I'm so glad we did. It is, you know, when I walked in, I thought there would be bells and whistles and people dancing and everything like this. And that is the Zanja Madre. And it is here in Los Angeles, you know, I've had the pleasure to travel in different parts of the world. You know, we're excited about something that's 160 years old. And so it is good to be proud of our history of 160 years there. You know, in this diagram here, once again, we got the canopy. This just shows all these piles that had to be drilled, the 46 of them here, and they went 45 feet down into the ground. And of course, over in the Gibbs building also, we had to do similar piles there. So, how do you do this? Very slow, and very slow. You can imagine the size of a tractor that you can get in here. It's about the size of one of the new small cars, those minis or so forth like that. It was even smaller. It had to fit through that storefront. in both width and height to get in there. And then once you get in there, it's great you got it in there, but how do you get that soil out? That was another challenge, building ramps, coming down there. It was a very tight construction. And of course, you don't find anything when you start digging in an historic area. Oh, yes, you do. And we've turned those artifacts over to El Pueblo and to Chris to hold for us for many years to come. This is the transfer beam. This transfer beam weighs 70,000 pounds. It's filled with concrete now. And how do you slide this 5-foot thick structure at an angle? You can see the tracks that we had to put in from the street. You had 2 forklifts that had these cables, and you were making sure that it was lowered down at the same time. You have somebody who's crazy, who worked, who sacrificed, and the rest of us on the outside making sure he was okay there. That was our job there. But, you know, it was really dedicated, the men and the women that were out there making sure that this got down there. And what happens is the column actually sets right on top of this that goes all the ways up to carry the canopy. Now, we move to the canopy. And Mark did such an excellent job showing you the canopy. And for us involved in it, it's wrapped in fabric. And I got to tell you, it's the most beautiful truss system, the welding on it. I think it should have won awards from the American Welding Institute. It is just, it was beautiful. So to build this, it was built in Southern California in a yard, and it had to be all built at the site, and then no problem. Now you got to get it downtown. We're not the space shuttle. We don't get to shut down all the streets of Los Angeles for 3 days, and I was the project manager of that project too, so I'm glad that's over. But what we had to do is cut this into 8 sections, and it had to then be brought over to the site. So that's good. It's brought over to the site, but now what you have to do is reassemble it, and you have to in the parking lot right across the street. Great. So you get it all reassembled, and you re-weld the certain points. Now you've got to wrap all the fabric around it. And you can see here just the different views of that. And when you did that, we were surveying and making sure, because when you weld, if you've ever seen welding of large steel, the tolerances we had 1/16 of an inch that we had to deal with when we set this on the bolts. So we were worried once we built it at the shop, cut it, refabricated it here, did it still fit within 1/16? Then when you put the fabric on it, still was at 1/16 of an inch. And then you had to move it into place. And before we could move it into place, we did something very smart. We had a blessing. And we ran into so many things. I think this was the smartest thing we did on the whole project was bringing this Aztec dancer to bless the canopy. Because it just runs a few more seconds here. And it was a very spiritual and moving moment. Something we've never ever done on a project, and I don't know if we'll ever do it again, but it was definitely necessary in this project here. So now you got to lift this canopy from the parking lot to the street, but by the way, it only weighs now here 140,000 pounds that you have to lift here. So it was no small challenge. Once again, how do you lift this without bending it and losing that 1/16 of an inch? So it was moved over 2 days. And then after you get it up on the roof, and everybody kept saying, is it okay? Is it okay? Is it okay? Well, now you got to get the bolts inside, connected to these columns. And how do you put the bolts into the column? Because you don't want to ruin the view of the great mural, right? So the bolts come from inside. So then you find some great worker who is willing to crawl inside of this canopy and place the bolts. And I tell you, I've never been so happy to see 20 bolts go in my entire life than we did in this project here. Moving over to the Gibbs building where the interpretive center is, and also where the viewing platform is. And this just shows some of the construction photos as we went through, and being very respectful, as Mark said here, of the historic site that we worked in. This is the main entrance completed, and it's really great for all the businesses and all the visitors that have already started coming tonight. Moving up onto the viewing platform, once again, this is a steel structure, and you'll go up on top, and all 20 of you standing up there at the same time can feel very, very safe. This is the place to be in an earthquake. This and over by the viewing platform, this is a great opportunity to be safe. Once again, is making sure the elevator in the Gibbs building leads to the viewing platform. Just another view of it. And we're just so happy that we're here. As you'll hear next where the exhibits are in the Sepulveda house, once again we had to take out all the flooring. What we found here were the floor joists were all rotted. There was a sewer leak that had been going on for many, many years, and that's all been fixed, so you're in good shape today. Also, when you're there, that's been all cleaned up for you. And then there was a lot of electrical conduits that we still don't know where they all go, but we had to install even more, so that made it, which required changes in the foundation system while during construction. You know, and once again, we were able to install all new heating, air conditioning, and cooling systems, so that's very good. And then coming back up on the second floor right above there, we went ahead and required some remodeling. We did flooring up above, restroom renovation. You know, in the paper that we did here, we listed all the names of the people, and I couldn't be prouder of this team. Everybody pulled together constantly during this project, and with the goal of 80 years, you know, having the opening on the 80th anniversary of Siqueiros, the grand opening of the mural, it was so important to make that deadline, and it just took everybody. And of course, on the grand opening celebration, nobody knew that there was any unforeseen conditions, and everybody's happy, and that's what it's all about. And thank you so much.